afternoon, folks, and this is Maggie Rose, and we are coming to you here at the Microeffect. We are the www.themicroeffect.com radio broadcasting network, and today is Thursday, the 9th of June, 2016, in the year of our Lord, 2016, and this is a new Concord Hour with Maggie Rose, your host, and this is your show. We're going to be having a very, very special guest coming up in just a few moments, as I've been announcing to you all since last week. I first want to let you know that a federal judge has now released the dash cam. Again, a federal judge has now released the dash cam footage that was taken on September 14th, 2014. Timothy Reynolds had pulled over a young 17-year-old by the name of Bryce Masters. And this is because the dispatch incorrectly told the police officer that the license plate was linked or connected to a wanted suspect. What this officer did was go over to the passenger side, tell the young man to get out of the car, then go over to the driver's side, pull open the door of the car, and start yanking the young man out, trying to pull him physically and bodily out of the car. And the young guy kept saying, "What did I do? What did I do? Am I under arrest?" over and over again. And the police officer wouldn't say a word. Then while the young man was still sitting in the front seat of the car, he tased him. Folks, he tased this young man. As it was determined later, he tased him in the chest 21 seconds longer than he should have. 4 times longer than he was trained to do. He tased him, stunned him in the chest for 21 seconds, which is 4 times longer than he was trained to do. He then picked up the moaning young man and dragged him over and threw him on the pavement. You can actually see stitches on the young man's chin. His face is all black and blue in the hospital. Now, this was reported by Sergeant E.J. Kelm, God bless him, who was with the Missouri Highway Patrol. Again, Sergeant E.J. Kelm with the Missouri Highway Patrol. And it turned out that this young man's heart stopped. He went into cardiac arrest, folks, from the tasing. 17 years old. He appeared to me to be Caucasian, and he was tased in the chest 4 times longer than he should have been. He went into cardiac arrest and had to be put into a medical-induced coma. As a result of that, he has suffered some vision issues, brain injury, and memory issues. And that came out of the Kansas City Star. So here in Missouri, another case of police brutality. And thank goodness, thank God for the judge who is willing to release to the public this dash cam footage showing that when he was tased, when this man deployed the taser, that this sheriff or deputy, Timothy Reynolds, was violating this young man's civil rights. Now, he's been found guilty and pled guilty and supposedly is serving 4 years in prison. Let's see if that really happens, folks. I remember talking to a family member not very long ago, and we're all outraged over the police brutality, especially towards people of color, over the last 20 to 30 to 40 years. And I remember saying, do you really believe that being shot in the back if you're black is worse than being shot in the back if you're white? And this individual said yes. And, of course, you all know I was thinking about Lavoie. Well, folks, over the years, we have seen where ranchers and farmers have been under attack by the federal government. We know that Hillary Clinton, who is part of the Clinton Foundation, has made a deal with Uranium One up in Canada. The Chinese and Russians have been promised many of our lands in payment. This is lands in Utah, Arizona, Oregon, and throughout the western United States where we know there's uranium and thorium and other resources. And they have been burning out the ranchers. They've been burning up their cattle. I saw something on the YouTube last night where here in Oregon there was up in an area called Prince Glen where they burned over 20 miles of grazing land and farmland. And they knew that there was going to end up burning down some of these people's homes, and they did not care. They told the ranchers and farmers, if you try to put out the fires, If you try to stop the fires, even approaching your homes and your cattle, you'll be arrested. Can you imagine being told that if you want to stop the fire from burning your homestead or your house or your barn or burning up your cattle, that you will be arrested? This federal overreach, folks, has gone too far. And I don't know if you people don't know what to do about this. I don't know if you're feeling, well, we're just waiting for the right moment. We don't know when the right moment is going to be to stand up for ourselves. But, folks, we have one family that came from another state to help another family in Oregon. The Bundys came from Nevada and elsewhere to try to help the Hammond family, to try to stand up and make it vocal that what's going on in this country is wrong and that something needs to be done. Why is it, folks, only the Bundys are taking a stand? Why did they put their necks in the noose and they were willing to take the shots taken at them, but the rest of you went running back to your homes, back to your states, and did not stay around to make sure that there was masses of people protesting what happened to Lavoie? Why did everybody cut and run? Why is nobody really there for the Bundys the way they should be? We need more than just letter writing, folks. We need people to be showing up and protesting and not just going back home and going about their business as usual. There's a way to do civil disobedience peacefully and without violence, and that's what the Bundys were doing. So with that said, folks, we have Carol Bundy coming on right now as a guest. This is Cliven Bundy's wife. She and her husband and family basically hit the world news in 2014 when they were trying to stand up for their freedoms, their liberties, and for the pursuit of happiness, for their property, for their livelihood. And as you know, many ranchers and farmers are being pushed out of their livelihoods by the federal government under Agenda 21, under the New World Order, under the cabal. And the Bundys are the ones that said, no, we're not going to take it anymore. We're going to stay the course. Carol, are you with us?
I am. Thank you for having me on, Maggie.
Carol, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I'm looking at the picture here on Skype of you and your wonderful husband. What a loving, loving picture, the two of you together. And, you know, it breaks my heart. On one hand, I look at this beautiful picture of the two of you, and I kept thinking at one time that was Jeanette and Lavoie. And she'll never be able to hold him like that again because of what the federal government and their mercenaries have done to this country.
That's right. We've allowed the federal government to take total control of every facet of our life, right down to who you go to the bathroom with.
Yeah, that's right. We were talking about the transgender bathrooms, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we were, as you know, we were in Nevada a couple weeks ago. My son had a competition, and we were in both Reno and Sparks, and they had the competition in a community center that's there in that area. And my husband came running into the competition room. He said, you'll never believe it. He said they have one bathroom on the other side of the main desk, the reservation desk, that's now been set aside, and it's for transgender people. I mean, and I'm hearing from many people around California, Oregon, Washington, that there's been protesting among the parents that if their daughter wants to go into a bathroom, and there's only two bathrooms there, a male bathroom and a female bathroom, does she want to go in there and change in or out of her gym shorts or in and out of her swimming suit, and having somebody in there that is of the opposite sex but wants to identify as being a female? That is violating her privacy, is it not?
Well, that's how I feel, and that's how I think the majority of the Americans feel. The trouble is that there's a few that tend to, well, you know, spoil the party for all of us, so to speak. What we find, though, is people are afraid to stand up, and so silence is acceptance. So by remaining silent, it means that you accept it, and that's where we were as a family when we decided to make a stand. It was a stand against a government that was so out of control and had so much overreach of all the laws and that was even given to them that we finally said no more. Somebody has to take a stand. And now I know that we had a purpose for taking that stand because we have private property rights that were getting trampled upon. But folks, it's coming to your house next.
Oh, yes. People, so many people, including in my family, just do not believe it. They do not believe this is going to ever happen. And people have fallen asleep at the wheel. They've been lulled into a false sense of complacency and apathy, or they'll say, we're just too busy to worry about it. Let somebody else who's got time on their hands worry about it. Well, if everybody takes that attitude, what is going to happen in this country, Carol?
Well, then the federal government's going to take control, and we no longer have a free nation. We have a communist nation. Because when you let the government control completely every facet of your life, you no longer are free. And that's why we come to America. That's why the Pilgrims came. And I know some of you have heard this story before, but I had ancestors that came on the Mayflower. And why did they come? They came for freedom to own their own property, freedom of religion, and freedom from a king. And all those things, they came here and they dug their fingers down in the dirt, and they got dirt underneath their fingernails, and they fell in love with freedom and in love with America. And you know what? That is, of course, my family legacy, but that's the way I am. I love to feel the dirt in my hands, and I love to know that this is free, and we have a constitution that should be protecting all of that. But somehow we're falling asleep. And I've had a lot of people say, what business did my family have in Oregon? Let me tell you something. That's something else that's a little wrong with America today. There's not a lot of people that know who their neighbor is. One of the commandments is to love thy neighbor as thyself, and their neighbor doesn't mean over the fence. We saw a fellow rancher that was being treated terribly, and nobody was coming to their aid. And let me tell you, the Hammonds were so afraid. When we talked to them, they said, if we don't go, they will put a bullet in our head.
And they would do that too, Carol. That's the one thing that we've seen over and over again over the last 20 years. I've been doing radio off and on for 20 years. And I remember back in the 90s of people that were gun store owners that ended up dead in their shop, and people walking out in their front yard with in their own privacy of their own front yard with a gun in their hand and being shot dead right in their front yard,
Yeah.
This government has no qualms about shooting first and asking questions later. The other day, there was a guy, and I guess he had taken a woman who had his arm around her throat, and I guess it was like in a mall, and many, many people talked him into letting her go. And he went outside to take a smoke, and he happened to have a knife in his hand. The cops went out there and shot him dead. Now, what threat is he against them or anybody in the surrounding area, as long as they're not within 30 feet of him, to shoot him dead because he has a knife in his hand? They could have talked him into dropping the knife, but no, it's like they have this adrenaline going through their body and this excitement, and they want to play macho man, and they just shoot first and ask questions later. And where is their training coming from, Carol? I do not understand how our police officers and law enforcement can be taught to just overreact like the way they're doing, and they do it with no punishment later on, no real repercussion later on.
That's why they act that way, because they feel they're immune to any penalties or laws. It's really easy to, and in their defense, in a way, fear does funny things to people. And that's where people with us, when they started to come and start arresting people started to run because they were afraid of our own government. We proved, when we made our stand, when we proved that we the people can stand up to the federal government and they will back down. Not a fire was shot. No one was harmed other than my family earlier on when they were chased and thrown to the ground. But we prevailed because we the people stood our ground and said, no, we will not move. No, he has private property rights, and we live in America, and we are going to protect those rights. More people need to do that. There are more we the people than there are the federal government. We cannot be afraid.
But the problem is, Carol, many of these people were beginning to find out, like what happened at Sugar Pine Mine, like what happened in Harney County, there are people that are mixed among the group of bearded bastards, oath keepers, 3%, that are basically government-paid employees, or they're paid government informants. I mean, we've heard the names out there tossed around, including Mark McConnell and, Sean Hennessy, or they call him Captain O, and some of these others that have all of a sudden, after they've done their dirty job, they've disappeared into the woodwork, and we don't see and hear from them again. We know that people at the very top of the chain in Oath Keepers and 3%, at the very top of 3%, very top of Bearded Bastards, there are actually people that have infiltrated themselves into these groups to try to get information, gain names, get the list of the memberships and who they are, where they live, what their professions are, and they're turning these lists over to the feds so the feds can go on and round people up. So how can we pull together as a group of people if we don't know who to trust?
Well, I think personally that's one of our God-given instincts that we know who to trust and who not to trust. And when you are around these people, there's certain people. There's also people, like you say, that are very kind and loving, and we can't know that. But by the same token, we cannot live in fear. So they have our name. So they have our number. So they might come pick us up. Are we going to live in fear, or are we going to live in freedom? Are we willing to give up our freedom so that other people can be free? Because we had ancestors in the Revolutionary War, we had ancestors in the Civil War, that's exactly what they were willing to do, where father fought against sons, sons against fathers, brothers against brothers, all for a cause of freedom.
Exactly. Yeah, my great-great-grandfather worked for King James. He was a gentleman of the bedchamber, and his name was Sir Thomas Hinton. He was a commoner that had been knighted, and he was the largest commoner, a landowner, and also a holder of the London Company. He had the most amount of stock and wealth in the London Company, and he actually came over to the New World and co-founded Jamestown Colony with another great-grandfather of mine, Matthew Howard. And what's interesting, he went back to England and sent his sons and his daughter-in-law and son-in-law, who was in the military, and sent them back to the New World because the Indians were uprising and they were going to have a big conference where they had to try to get the Indians to come to peace. And it turned out they settled in Maryland. And years later, Sir Thomas Hinton's great-grandson was a private in the Virginia militia and fought in the Revolutionary War against the British. So who would ever imagine that here Sir Thomas Hinton, who worked for King James and King George, that his own great-grandson would later on, who's born in Maryland, would say, you know what, we're not going to take this crap from the British any longer, and he actually fought in the Revolutionary War against the British. So you're right. This country has been founded on the whole feelings of worshiping and peace, the practice of one's own religious or spiritual faith, the practice of speech, to be able to own your own property, be able to guard and protect your own property, and that's where the Second Amendment comes in. So at this point in time now, we know what happened to the Hammonds. We know what was happening to Lavoie and to the Bundys prior to his murder. What is going on right now that you can fill us in that is happening as far as trying to get your husband and your 4 elder sons out of prison as political prisoners?
First off, I feel like all of the political prisoners are my sons, and I love them all, and I pray for all of them. So when I want to get my family out, that includes all 40-plus of them that are under these indictments. One thing that's going on is, especially here in Nevada, is Judge Navarro has denied all of them any kind of detention whatsoever. In Oregon, I think 11 of them now are out on pretrial detention. Here in Nevada, she doesn't even blink. It's just no. By doing that, she has also denied them a right to a speedy trial. She has also denied my husband the right to our attorney of choice, to our counsel. So she has basically stripped my husband and my family of their constitutional rights guaranteed to them by the Constitution.
What is her name? Can you please let people out there know the name of this judge and what city is she based out of?
She's based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and she's Judge Navarro.
Judge Navarro, okay.
Yeah. And she was endorsed by Harry Reid and appointed by President Obama.
Okay, so Judge Navarro, do you know what her first name is?
I do, and but for the life of me, I can't pull it out in my head now that everybody's listening to me. I don't.
Okay, so it's Judge Navarro. That sounds Spanish, Hispanic.
She's Latino. Yeah,
she's Latino. Okay, so Judge Navarro was basically appointed by Harry Reid and signed and endorsed by the so-called President Obama. And I take it that she's probably knows everything that's going on in Oregon, but she is choosing to live by a different set of rules than everybody else would normally be living by. So therefore, is there a way that we can have her removed from office, impeached, or recused?
We filed papers to have her, asking her to recuse herself, and we also asked her to step down, which she denied.
She denied all that, okay?
Yes.
So what is the next?
Gloria Navarro.
Okay, Gloria Navarro. Now, what can we do in the next step?
Gloria.
Gloria.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are going to go ahead and move toward the Ninth Circuit to ask her to be removed and to also ask for pretrial release for Cliven.
Okay. Now my question also, Carol, is she is actually denying them a right to a speedy trial. She's denying them to be allowed out on detention, which means basically out free on bail or out free until the day they have their hearing.
Yeah.
Which takes basically up to 2 years, I understand, before we can even have a trial. And
they do have it set for February, but whether that will stick or not, I don't know. September in Oregon, February in Nevada, but we know how that works.
Oh, yes, we do. Now, the thing is that she's not even allowing you to have the lawyer of your choice. How is that even legal?
It's not, but this is what I'm trying to say, is the federal government has no rules or regulations. They have free run, and there's no checks and balances for them. And that's where we, the people, come in. We need to hold them accountable. We need to demand that certain criteria is met on these things. So when people ask what they can do to help, start looking into this. Start demanding that justice be served. Start demanding that we can have some. The executive order that there will be an order. There is an order between executive and judicial. Let's make it stick. Right now, it's all just one. It's just all in one big melting pot, and the federal government has free reign. They can do whatever they want with no. They're not responsible. They don't have to answer for anything they do because they feel they're above the law.
Now, who was the lawyer or lawyers that you were trying to get in the case of Cliven or even of Mel and Davy?
Mel is sticking with, he has a court-appointed attorney. Davy has Mr. Cal Potter from Las Vegas. We've tried to get Mr. Larry Clayman in. Twice, she has denied us, twice.
Now, you do understand the reason why she's denied it. It's because he's a very, very good lawyer, and he's been very successful in the past in making sure that the law is followed, and he's been very good working for his clients. And she knows, I think that if you guys bring in Larry Kleinman, she knows that there's a very good chance you're going to be able to get Cliven out.
I think she knows that. Yeah, she does not want him in our court.
So the thing is in that court, I do not even see where she can give any kind of a law or regulation that states that she has the right to deny him representing who he wants to represent and who is willing to have him.
Well, I guess he has a complaint at the bar against him that's active right now, but it's not been, there's been no charges or it's not finalized, it's not over. And he says it's a frivolous charge by a disgruntled member of the bar. And he says so that's what she's using, but that is still a very flimsy excuse.
Oh, yeah. And, I've seen that happen before. In my own case, I was one of 300-something people chosen to sit on a blue ribbon task force that ran for 12 months that was supposed to be about bureaucratic abuse going against foster children and children that are in the adoptive system. And being that I was a parent representative to all these parents and these kids, I was one of 2 parent representatives. And one of the things they said that you could not be on this task force, it was a county task force, if you had any cases in the last 5 years against you or anything that had been opened on you, like a suspicion of child endangerment or child abuse or anything like that. And so I went to Hawaii while I was on this task force for a week on a field trip. And while I was there, the people on the task force that wanted me removed, because I wouldn't allow them to be the fox in charge of the hen house, they actually tried to open up a fake CPS or Child Protective Services case on me, alleging that I had left my 16-year-old daughter alone with her 3 younger brothers, and that I just taken off and nobody knew where I was. Well, of course, my husband knew where I was, and her father knew where I was, because both men were taking care of the children at home, and while I was in Hawaii supervising a field trip. So they actually tried to open up a CPS case on me while I was overseas, so therefore when I came back I wouldn't be able to sit on the task force any longer. So we know where they do these hopped up charges and these fake things they pull right out of the air to try to put everything in limbo so you don't even have a chance to be able to defend yourself. They want you to be guilty. They're going to make you guilty, and then they're going to make it impossible nearly for you to be able to defend yourself and prove your innocence. Is that not what's going on here?
That's exactly what's going on. And, this is my family that's involved in this, and I cannot even discuss the case with my husband without it being recorded on the phone. I do not get to visit with him unless it's over the phone for a 15-minute call that they charge outrageous fees for, and every few you are on the line with an inmate, so you're interrupted. Every time I visit with him, it is recorded. And if I went to just via a monitor and a phone.
Well, Carol, we're going to go to a station break, and we're going to be right back and talk about that. Folks, we are right now live here on the Micro Effect with Carol Bundy, wife of Cliven Bundy. She is the matriarch of her. She just had a few hours ago her 62nd grandchild was born, a grandson. Congratulations to you and your family, Carol. That is a beautiful thing indeed. Folks, we're going to be back in just a few moments here on the New Concord Hour with Carol Bundy, and we'll be talking more about what's going on in this country, and then we're going to try to figure out some things that we can do where you folks can come out of the woodwork again and take a stand for America. You say you love this country, you say that you want your freedoms, you want the freedoms back that you've lost. Well then, folks, let's stop talking the talk and let's start walking the walk. We'll be right back at the station break. Folks, and this is Maggie Rose, and this is the New Concord Hour. What is it going to take to light a fire under all of you there? Folks, I am serious. You know what? Not everybody can serve in the military as I did for nearly 41 years. Not everybody can spend the time away from their families to go join Oath Keepers or 3% or Bearded Bastards or any of our other liberty groups that are out there. Everybody is trying to do a little bit of something, but not enough people are doing enough, folks. People have fallen asleep at the wheel. They're afraid. I can understand why you're afraid. You don't want to be sitting in jail either. But you know what, folks? If we don't have more people taking a stand for this country, we have over 45 political prisoners right now that have been involved with Sugar Pine, with the Bundy Ranch in 2014, and with Harney County. Only 40-something people that have been willing to make the sacrifices in order to stand up for your rights and freedoms to be able to even sit here and listen to the computer, to the Internet. I have somebody that came up here right now, and she's listening in with Carol Bundy here as a guest of mine today, and she's saying, she said, when you turn around and you look at this Judge Navarro of Las Vegas, Nevada, this Judge Gloria Novato, that she herself is violating the Constitution. Why are not more people doing something about this, folks? She was appointed by Harry Reid, according to Cy, who's the same guy involved in trying to do the land grab of the Bundy's land and sell off the land of the Bundys to the Chinese. Is that a conflict of interest here? You know, folks, when you also turn around and you look at, as Cy said here, Chelsea Clinton, who is she married to? Well, she's married to Mark, whose father is Edward Mezvisky, who has done some horrible things, some major, major misdemeanors and felonies, and nobody's slapping his hand for it. And wouldn't you believe it, that happens to be Chelsea Clinton's father-in-law? So I guess the corruption goes everywhere, huh? Here's Chelsea, her parents, that have been involved in corrupt things way back to the very beginning, and now she's married to her father is just as crooked as they come. Folks, what does it take to light a fire under all of you? Have you made the trips up to Portland to visit the political prisoners? I know I have. So has my husband and my son. We've gone up there to visit them. We have written letters. We've put money in their accounts whenever we could afford to. I myself went up to Portland and met with Angie and Lisa and Angie's little girl and spent some time with them, letting them know that just by my presence, I love them and I care about them. I went in and I visited with Ryan Bundy, and I put my hand up on the glass, and we could only touch with the glass between us. And I promised him, I swore to him. I mean, they don't even let you take a Bible in there with you. They won't let you take a piece of paper or a pencil, even to write down notes that the political prisoner is giving you information. So anything that they tell you, you have to commit it to memory. I actually had to go downstairs and come back up again for another visit with Sean Anderson, just so I could remember all the details of what he wanted me to know. So, folks, tell me, those of you 3% and Oath Keepers across this nation right now, what are you actually doing, if anything, to try to bring this country back from the brink of what's going on here? We have right now a revolution going on, an information revolution. We're giving you this information. We're asking you not to believe us, to go out there and research it for yourself. Start paying attention to what's going on in your neighborhood. And be there for your neighbors. As Carol just said, people don't even get to know their neighbors anymore. Do you actually know the neighbors 3 houses down from you? Or if you're out in the country, the person who lives at the end of your lane? Would you be there for them if there was a massive Cascadia event, an earthquake? Now is the time to get to know your neighbors, not when there's an emergency and all hell is breaking loose. Carol, what would you suggest people can do to try to help all of your sons and daughters that are political prisoners right now? 40-something and counting, right?
Yes. First off, thank you, Maggie, you and your husband, for the endless hours and the dollars that you've put on commissary, because I know that it doesn't go unnoticed. And there's literally hundreds of others that have done the same thing. They love letters. Letters have kind of stopped coming in because after people write a letter of support and there's really nothing exciting going on or positive, it's really hard. But they still would love letters and poems and just words of encouragement. They appreciate that. What I would like to see the American people do, because they always say, what can we do? I would like you to read and understand the Constitution so that you know what our rights are. Then I would like you to question in Oregon, in Nevada, and all these western states, why does the federal government have over in Nevada 87% of the land, and in Oregon and those others close to 50% of the land? Why have we allowed the federal government to control that much of our land within an admitted state, a sovereign state of the Union? And yet we let them come in and tell us what to do in that our country. So let's question jurisdiction. Let's go to Judge Navarro's court and question why she has jurisdiction over this matter. Our rights are private property rights, rights that are Nevada state rights. Why is the federal government even coming after us for these rights? Question what's going on. Question your legislatures. Question those people that you voted in and that you pay their salary to protect your life, liberty, and property. Ask them, what are we paying them for if it's not to protect our personal property?
So my question to you is, if Joe Blow was to leave Henderson, Nevada, which is outside Las Vegas, it's a suburb, and they were to go and file in court, what could they file in court to allow them to have standing to speak up in the courtroom to Judge Navarro and ask her these questions? Are you even allowed to speak up and say, Your Honor, how is it you have jurisdiction here? What gives you the right to violate the Constitution? Can people even get up and say that?
No. There is one U.S. Marshal that's very kind. The others look us in the eye, and they look to me and they say, if you try to communicate with the prisoner, that's my husband, in any way, we will remove you from the court. They do not want me to blow a kiss. They do not want me to wave. They do not want me to even wink. There is one that's kind enough that if he is there that day, he will say, as long as you're quiet and respectful, we will allow you to do that. So the only person that's allowed to speak in the court is the lawyers, and that's if she decides she wants to listen to them. She just denies all our motions, so there's really not a lot that can be said even by them in the court.
So you're telling me that basically the lawyers are not even really allowed to speak up themselves?
They are to a point because there is a procedure, but she limits a lot of what she listens to and doesn't listen to.
Well, my question is, I thought in this country, in order to make a well-informed decision and be able to have justice in the courtroom, you need to be willing to listen to all the facts being presented to you. So basically what you're saying is she's even violating the court ethics, the actual things that are set down in cement as far as being able to make a well-informed decision based on all the information presented.
Well, she'll say that she's read the indictment and that she understands what the case is.
And do you really believe that this so-called judge, Gloria Navarro of Las Vegas, Nevada, that she's really read everything? I doubt. I think she's glossing over it and just blowing you guys off. That's what I think is going on. It is, as Sy said, a kangaroo court.
Yeah, it is, and I believe that there's no coincidence that she was the one assigned to this. She is not going to step down unless we make her through the Ninth Circuit, or maybe even we're prepared to go to the Supreme Court if I can afford it. And we are not giving up. You people that are out there that are asking what you have to do, write letters, demand. I would even write a letter to the federal government and say, show me title to the land in the state of Nevada. Show me titles to the land that you claim in Oregon. But more importantly, we need to understand that they do not have jurisdiction within a sovereign state, and we are allowing them to do that. Now, we've stayed out of the federal court until now. Now they have pulled us in, and so we are with the federal court. But we have no contract with the federal government. We owe the federal government nothing. The mainstream media will say that we owe 1.2, sometimes 1.8 million, depending on how they want to spin the story. I have not received one bill from the BLM. I have not received one invoice from the BLM. I pay my taxes. I pay my income tax and my property taxes. And I did try to pay my grazing fees to the state of Nevada through Clark County, which they refused. The only thing, why do we even really have to pay to use our property rights? We pay our property tax. What we would pay to the Bureau of Land Management was management fees. But we no longer have a contract with them to manage our ranch. So technically and legally, we don't even deal with the Bureau of Land Management anymore.
Now, what is this I heard from you today, that there is supposedly a new, we're talking about government getting too big and taxing the people to death and the government overreach? What is this about that you heard the other day that the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, has created through Dan Love, that's Love, this brand new law enforcement department, And what is it supposed to be? It's for protection, security, and what?
I think it was
What?
investigation.
Okay, so this is the BLM has formulated their own law enforcement branch with, of course, nobody oversighting them, nobody above them, nobody to answer to, and it's their own security, protection, and investigative branch, which means that they can do their own thing without the FBI or the CIA or anybody else having any input.
It's the Division of Security, Protection, and Intelligence.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
And Dan Love, who looked at my boys and pointed them and said, I'm going to kill you or I'm going to take your life. I don't, either way. They've moved him into the head of this new department. It's called the New Division of Security, Intelligence, and that is the BLM now has their own special policing power force within an admitted state. What the heck do we have and pay sheriffs for anymore?
There you go. And that's the one thing is, what I was wanting to get into the thing about sheriffs. We need to let the sheriffs out there know they have a job to do. And I don't want to hear any more about this sheriff in Montana that doesn't have the wet between his legs to be man enough to stand up like a sheriff and do his job. The sheriff in Harney County is and who's basically, his family members have told me that he's only doing this because he's afraid for his life. So the sheriff in Harney County is playing patsy with these corrupt bureaucrats because he's in fear of his life. Other sheriffs, they need to stand up and say, wait a minute, we are the law of this county. We have a sheriff down in California. We have a sheriff up here in Douglas County, John Hanlon. He wrote a letter to Vice President Biden, said, if you come into my county and take away the guns of the people, of the law enforcement, come in here, of the federal government, and you try to take away my people, he said, I will throw you in jail. We need to have more sheriffs like that. You know that, Carol.
Yes, we do, and I want to tell you when we did back in April of 2014 when we had I like to call it a stand-up because we stood up for our rights. We only was demanding that the sheriff do his job, and we did that. There was about an hour there when the sheriff went back to Vegas that we kind of took over the sheriff's job because he wasn't doing it. Under the freeway, under the bridge there, the sheriff deputy stepped forward and said, what do you need us to do? And we told them, ask them to leave. And they turned and they gave him 30 minutes. And Dan Love and his special forces left. And we proved right there that they will respect your county sheriff, and we need to hold them accountable. And that's another thing that we, the people, can do is start educating our county sheriff. You got to remember, though, they're funded with a lot of federal money, and they don't want to lose that federal money. They have a contract with the federal government because they've accepted federal money, and we've got to stop that shame.
Oh, we definitely do. As I said here, the BLM has formed this new division of security, protection, intelligence called the SPI. She also went on to say if the sheriffs are in fear of their lives, then they must step down and allow someone to be sheriff who is not, and let that person step in. Carol, when you see all these sheriffs and highway patrol and police departments across the nation accepting federal money for all their new toys and all their big boy toys to play with, what they're really doing is selling their soul to the devil is what they're doing. They're taking all these toys and they're becoming a law enforcement, a militarized law enforcement, and that is not what our county sheriff should allow. He should say, I don't want your money, I don't want your toys. We will find out in our county how to survive without selling our soul to the federal government.
That's what we need to do, and so that's where we can start, we the people. Start at home. Start with your county government. Start with your county sheriff. Start with your we call them county commissioners here, but with your town board, and hold them accountable for what goes on and stop the flow of federal money into your communities, and we will have a whole different America.
Oh, we will. As Cy said, local money or a mutual protection pact. What other ideas do you have, Carol, that we, the people, can do to help political prisoners like Jason Patrick and the Bundy family and so many of the others that are sitting, over 40 people sitting right now with so-called indictments against them. From what I understand, they haven't even been really formally charged.
Well, they go when they go before their detention hearing, they read the indictment. So I this is all new to me. I've never had a family that's been in a court. I've never had a family that we've had to worry about courts and lawyers and judges. So I'm learning the language and I'm learning the steps as we go. I'm very naive to this kind of life, but I think that we need to start holding our elected officials responsible. Ask them what are they going to do to help these political prisoners before it comes to their state, to their district, to their county.
Right, and one of the things they always add in there is they were resisting arrest, and we know darn well that in 99% of the cases, people are not resisting arrest. So that's just one of the charges that we heard in the grapevine is being used against them. Do you have an address where people can write to you and send money to take this to the Ninth Circuit and also to the Supreme Court? Is there an address or some place where people can go pay me account or something where they can start putting money in to help the cause?
I have an address. I can give that to you.
Okay.
It's P.O. Box 7175, Bunker 89007.
Would you give that address again, please?
Yes, P.O. Box 7175, Bunkerville, Nevada 89007. I also have a PayPal account, as does each of my sons. If you go to the Bundy Ranch blog, there's links there.
Okay, so what is the Bundy Ranch blog? Where would you find that?
Well, if you put a search, it comes right up, but it's bundyranch.blogspot.com.
Okay, and this money that people send in will also be helping if it goes to the Ninth Circuit and to the Supreme Court. That will also be helping all the other political prisoners as well, not just the Bundy family.
It is, and that's why we're trying to put Cliven on a fast track. Hopefully I can get him through because they've got him as the main player. So if we can get him up to the Supreme Court ASAP, then we can clear this whole thing up. And I have a lawyer. I have Larry Clayman. We're going to win this. I just got to get him in my court.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. Carol, can we have you come back on the show another day?
Sure, I would love to. Thank you so much. And thanks for all the listeners for their prayers and their support. I cannot thank you enough physically. Just thank you so much.
Folks, that was Carol Bundy, wife of Cliven Bundy, mother of Mel and Davy and Ammon and Ryan. And what is your other son's name, the last son that you have?
Arden.
Arden, who just graduated high school. Congratulations, Arden. Congratulations, Carol, on your 62nd grandchild. Folks, that was Carol Bundy. We will have her back another time. You can write to P.O. Box 7175, Bunkerville, Nevada 89007. Thank you again, Carol. God bless you. Have a good week.
Thank you so much. Love you.
Love you too, Carol.
Okay.
Folks, this is Maggie Rose. This is the New Concord Hour. We will be back with you next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, same time, 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we'll have another special guest on with us again next week. God bless you all. Have a good weekend. Stand up for America, folks. Put a fire under your neighbors and your family members. Let's take back this country legally and nonviolently, one step at a time. Good night.